Welcome back.
To Marriage Beyond the Veil. It's estimated that 70% of our relationships start in cohabitation.
Okay. Interesting. 70%. That sounds like a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Cohabitation.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of surprising to me. It's surprising to me that there are enough people in relationships that have that statistic, but I digress.
Well, just an estimate. So,
Okay.
that 70% of people in relationships cohabitate.
Okay.
So, what are some of the things I don't particularly like about cohabitation in relationships?
Well, long periods of cohabitation.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I remember advice you had given to a young couple.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, in a year's time,
Right.
if he's not pulled the plug, it's time to get him out of there. Yeah, and that's the thing. Whether you're talking about cohabitation or just being in a long relationship, because people will be in a relationship and basically be kind of governing themselves as if they were a married couple without being a married couple.
Right. And that is a problem that I have with cohabitation for long periods. Now, my rule of thumb has been for anyone that I've counseled or talked to is 1 year. So 1 year living together really gives you a chance to see whether or not, you're compatible. After that, somebody needs to go if you're not going to make it a committed relationship.
Well, and from my perspective...
Unless you're roomies.
Well, when you say
completely
roommates...
different. Yeah.
Oh, you mean, okay.
Yeah, just that you're roommates. Mm-hmm.
Right. But the reality is this. To have a period of time where you feel like you need to live with somebody to figure out who they are, I don't think that's required, and that's definitely not something that would be ideal from a Christian perspective. But when you know who you are and what you want, and you're spending time with folks to set up shop or set up house, should I say, because that, if it doesn't work, then you're setting yourself up for all kinds of challenges. What you invested and, how do you divvy up? And it's just a bunch of...
my second one.
Yeah, it's just a bunch of potential headaches.
Yeah. So what have you invested? Your time? What have y'all acquired together?
Right.
And then, what if one person is putting more into the relationship in terms of purchases?
Which more than likely will always be the case.
Yeah, so you get to a point where you're, I won't say tired of each other or struggling, and because relationships have those moments, where, there are times where everything's hunky-dory and everything's roses, but then there are other times when there are little clouds following you around every day.
Little clouds.
Yes, little dark clouds. And sometimes they rain on you.
Well, I personally would not recommend anybody cohabitating. I wouldn't. But if that's where, of course, that's where a lot of people are. That's what a lot of people do. So I get that. Mm-hmm. But if you do decide to cohabitate, I think there should be a clear timeline for each of you to say, okay, well, this is our objective. Why do you feel the need to move in and pool your resources and all that kind of stuff? Is there a marriage? And if you're not interested in marriage, okay, if that's how you want to live your life, that's your choice. But if ultimately it's because you're moving towards marriage, but you don't, then you have to ask yourself, why?
Yeah, and if you're in a relationship and it's been years after years after years, you can still set up legal documents to make sure that you're covered. And I really do suggest that people, if you decide that marriage isn't for you, but you do want to, as he says, live as a married couple, then take the necessary steps to make sure that everything's put on paper. Because what ultimately happens is something happens, and then you have no rights to help this person or assist them. Someone else from the outside comes in now, who you probably haven't seen since forever.
Well, think about how many times this has happened where maybe there was an ex-spouse.
Yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. And then you set up house mm-hmm. with this ex-spouse who, but you know, and heaven forbid, this person transitions. Mm-hmm. And then the ex-spouse comes in, mm-hmm. and have access to all of the property, everything that you invested. And you don't have a leg to stand on. I mean, it's just, to me, it makes no sense. There is a Christian perspective, there is a civil perspective, right. And you need to determine what lane you're in, mm-hmm. right? And do what's according to what's going to be in your best interest. But mm-hmm. until tomorrow, if the Lord says the same.
Watch yourself.
Don't cohabitate.